Alright, hello everyone. Let's talk about Fell Bullet Yisang and let's talk about Princess of La Mancha Land Rodion. I am disappointed with Rodion and I am quite surprised with Yisang. So let's talk about Yisang first. So Yisang, right, he's going to have 6, 12, 18, 30, right? But 30 doesn't matter. Why? Because you target the ally with the least HP. So this shit here doesn't matter at all, right? But this ego, 32 coiner in 7 AoE, that means the damage output is actually going to be very solid. And if you can crit on the second coin, that means that you're going to do quite a lot of damage because additional 63% damage on critical hit for every taunt memory dealt. And you also get some additional bleed because why not? Okay, so this payoff is actually quite good in terms of damage. So if you use this and you manage to kill someone, congrats, you get actually quite a good amount of damage on the second coin, right? But even without it, the key point of this ego, right, is the fact that you can accelerate your poise and your poise count really fast. Because you use this ego one time, with Pride Resonance ideally, then you can get 7 poise potency, and whether you kill or fail to kill, you get additional 3 poise. Just like Fell Bullet Heathcliff, you can get a lot of poise from using this ego. So once you get a bunch of poise potency here, you also have a nice passive, which gives you on kill, gain 2 poise count, 2 times per turn. And 10 poise potency plus a nice passive that gives you poise count. This is the perfect for poise. And also, this ego has 6 cost for pride. And pride is the cheapest resource in a pride team of poise. So this basically doesn't exist. And then you have 2 ref requirement, which some of the IDs also have. So there's no problems here at all. Like, I think Basalt also has the red skill, right? The red skill can also totally feel this. Ahab has the red skill, also can totally feel this. Blade Lineage Isan has a red skill, also can feel this. So yeah, you can see my point, right? A lot of these characters here totally can fill up these things for him. And this part here is basically free because you're triggering the resonance for pride every single turn in a poise team. So this is really whatever. So this is a really good ego just to feel yourself, and you can totally use this with either of the Yisangs, because giving this Yisang here more poise count gen is great, but this character here has one major problem, which is he can only generate 2 poise here and 5 poise here, which means he needs poise potency from other sources, whether it be Blind Obsession or Ishmael. But using that Fell Bullet, boom, 10 poise potency, one shot. Congratulations. As long as you can maintain your poise count, which is poise count here, right? You will be able to just maintain your poise for the entire turn, and then your skill 2 and skill 3 will actually do some amazing work in terms of damage output and also bleed count application. So there you go, one solid option already, right? But Blade Lineage Salsu is going to be the big option, because as long as you clash win and you get 1 poise count here, and you kill someone, you get 2 poise count there, and you use your skill 1 and skill 2 to get poise counts, then congrats, in 1 turn you get 5 poise count. So that is really good in terms of just building up 5 poise count in 1 clash. This is not even including people like Blade Lineage Dawn, Blade Lineage Massault, who are going to be supporting your team, or Blade Lineage, Captain Ahab, who will sometimes trigger your skill 1 that gives you additional poise count and poise potency. So yeah, it's really good for these IDs. And if any of your characters happen to be low, feel free to take the shot and just kill them and then do a crazy amount of damage to all of the enemies. And you also get to do it later on. What do I mean by later on is that you don't use this ego at the start, right? Most of the time, unless you want to really try and kill someone. If you can kill someone, then congratulations, you get a bunch of stuff, right? And usually you wait until near the end or near the middle of the fight where people are low, then you can use this ego to kill. So if you want to use this ego at the start, it will be a build-up ego, something to help you scale. And then after that, when you're ready to kill someone and then do the AoE damage to a lot of targets, then you use this ego for the killing effect. So there's 2 uses for this ego, and I like it a lot. This ego is very solid. The corroder effect is something you won't really use too much, but this passive plus this active of 10 poise potency is very good. It is almost exactly the same logic of using this ego with Fell Bullet Heathcliff. Fell Bullet Heathcliff also wants a lot of pride stuff, a lot of envy stuff in his team, and he also needs poise potency, which is his major problem. His skill 1 gives him +4 poise count, Quick Quack I mean. Quick Quack Heathcliff has +4 poise count on skill 1, but does not have enough poise potency, so needs support. But his Fell Bullet Heathcliff ego can give him the poise potency. Same shit here, except Yisang doesn't really have that problem, because all of the Yisangs have a way of getting the poise count and stuff from just Ahab combo with Massault combo with anyone else. So this ego is just additional support for already a very good support character. I think this ego is basically free, and it has some niche use of using it to kill your allies every now and then, but you don't even have to. Just shoot someone who is probably resistant to piercing damage, which is like Queequeg or Ahab. Both of them legit don't take damage from piercing. So yeah, this is a totally fine ego in my opinion. I would totally use this ego in a Poise team if I really enjoy Poise. It is really, really solid. I like this ego a lot. Okay, so let's move on to Princess of La Mancha Land Rodion. So this ID, the biggest disappointment is this part here. Oh my god, 2 and 2. Skill tree is 1 and 1 without the enhanced form, and +2 and +2 with the enhanced form, and the defense is +1 bleed count. Oh my god, it's not the Savior. Okay, it's not the Savior raw. Okay, it's not the Savior raw. There are two things I'll talk about which I really like about this ID, which is that this ID totally feels Sanguine Desire Rodion, which is a Walpurgis ego. So for anyone who really wants to make a bleed team work outside of Mirror Dungeon, you will need to go and pick up this ego when Walpurgis comes back. I'm very sorry that this is locked behind Walpurgis Knight. But this ego is so strong because the main target for this skill cannot lose bleed count for the turn. It is just too damn strong because this is the biggest weakness of bleed count, and this ego totally removes that weakness for bleed count. So Dulcine Rodion totally feels that ego, and that is already a very good thing about that ego. And that ego also really likes to have lust resonance. So congrats, this ego plus this ID, perfect match, right? The next thing that's good about this ID is actually the stacking of Blooming Thorns, because with Blooming Thorns mechanic, right, if you get hit, you actually inflict additional bleed against the attacker and you lose 1 stack. And then also, for Princess of La Mancha and Rodion only, she gets to convert it, so she inflicts even more bleed and rupture potency with her attacks, which is pretty solid. The big problem I have with her is that Blooming Thorn stacking for herself, in order to get your skill tree to the enhanced form, you need 25, right? Which means that you ideally want to use your defense skill because this gives you the highest amount of Blooming Thorn effects, which means you will not be supporting your allies with your skill 1 and skill 2 most of the time, because the skill 1 and skill 2, the Blooming Thorn stacking is very, very slow. So what is the other major way for her to get the Blooming Thorn? It is to use the passive. This is the major way, the main way of her getting the Blooming Thorn. Yes, the counter can give you 4, but this one gives you 5 every single turn. Whenever another ally takes bleed or consumes Blood Feast, then this unit gets 1 Blooming Thorn. The whole theme of this ID here is that she takes care of her children, which is why her skill 1 and skill 2s all give buffs, all give Blooming Thorns, and she also likes to drink blood, right? So all these Blooming Thorns and all of this all require a Blood Fiend check, right? So she will buff all of her allies, preferably her children in particular. And she will also heal her children, and she will buff her children. And she needs her children to take bleed damage for her and to drink Blood Feast so that she can stack up this thing here so that she can do the Festival Will End and do a major amount of damage, as well as give Festive Fever, which is very solid. It is going to be, for Blood Feast characters only, a 3% buff times 10, which is 30% extra damage. It is quite nice. For any other characters with bleed, it will be deal 1.5% only for anyone who is not a Blood Fiend or anyone without a Blood Feast mechanic. So that is going to be quite a nice buff, and after you use this attack here, take note that this Festive Fever will immediately disappear, which means that Rodion ideally is going to be the fastest one, and hopefully your Rodion has also drank a bunch of blood beforehand so that you can get a lot of Festive Fever here, right? To get this, you will need to get resonance first of all, and then after that you need to get 5 plus 1 for every 50. So you need to drink additional 5 times 50, which is 250 Blood Feast before you use this finale over here, right? So talked about all of this stuff here, right? You got the bleed stuff over here, you got the buff stuff over here, you got a bunch of buff stuff over here, and you got the main way to build up your stuff over here. The one problem is her Blood Feast drinking is a bit awkward, right? So right now, right, with 3 Blood Fiends on the field, all of them trying to drink the blood is actually kind of awkward. Okay, you can probably exclude Gregor a little bit, right? Because Gregor can go a long time without drinking the blood. So for a few turns, Otis and Princess of La Mancha Land, will be the only two people drinking. And because she's a second kindred, she takes priority. Her drinking of the Blood Feast is at combat start. So that's how they use that's how they do it to represent the drinking of the blood. The issue is that Gregor, who is one of our main Blood Feast providers, only gives blood on use. Which means that if let's say the order, right, is Rodion goes first, she drinks, alright? She makes a bunch of blood on the enemies, she applies a bunch of bleeding stuff, and then the enemies hit you, and then you get some bleeding on them, so congrats, you get some Blood Feast around, right? Well, Gregor, who is bleeding himself actively while fighting, that Blood Feast, right, actually gets drank by either Gregor or by Otis, because they are fighting, and the moment they use their skills, they drink the blood. On use, consume Blood Feast, right? So odds are when you're in combat and you're fighting and you're bleeding while in combat, which is where bleeding happens most of the time because you are going to be clashing them there, that's when these two will slurp up the blood. So what happens is that at the end of the turn, there's no Blood Feast left from the combat. All of the combat IDs have just drank all the blood. And then the combat start ID, which is Rodion, is actually not going to drink blood because she gets the combat start blood, which is basically the leftovers of those who did the fighting. So she drinks the leftovers, and then after that, she gets the Blooming Thorn, and then you need to drink how much again? 250 Blood Feast to get this sax over here. It's actually pretty slow right now. It's actually pretty slow. I will say one thing though. I am judging this based on the fact that we only have 2 of her kids on the field right now. Rodion is an ID that really wants all of her allies to have bleeding or to have Blood Feast skills, right? And she also wants more blood. So you need to spread Blooming Thorn a lot. You need the allies to get hit so that the enemies can bleed, and you also need to stack up your Blooming Thorns by using your counter skill a bunch, and you also want to slurp up a lot of the blood using your counter skill. Why? Because the counter skill, right, is on use, but the thing about this counter skill, right, is you also don't drink blood with it. You only increase Blood Feast. You don't increase yours, you increase the generic Blood Feast by a certain amount. So this ID, right, is a bit more selfless than I thought. Like, she doesn't really drink the blood a lot. She is instead letting her other allies drink the blood because she combat start drinks and her defense skill doesn't even drink the blood. So yeah, this character is kind of interesting. It's not the savior of bleed that I thought about. I thought that maybe 5 bleed count, 6 bleed count, oh my god, saves bleed. But no. Instead, this ID supports the Blood Fiends with lots of buffs, and then after that gives them Blooming Thorn and also stacks Blooming Thorn on herself. So if she does get hit, then she's able to also apply a bunch of bleed to the enemy. And then after that, the Blood Fiends on the field who are fighting, which is the third kindreds, they will be the ones who are more likely to drink most of the blood. Then after that, the second kindred will come to drink the blood. So it's a bit interesting that it's like this. So I'm not sure if she's actually supposed to be this selfless, but yeah, this ID is kind of like that right now, where she's a bit slow to build up Blooming Thorns just cause it's a bit tricky to get a bunch of IDs bleeding and a bunch of IDs to consume Blood Feast. But that will change in the future, of course, with other Blood Fiends being released. And this ID also feels the Sanguine Desire, so she can enable the Bleed team still pretty well. And after that, yeah, the buffs, honestly, if you look at attack buff, it looks awesome, right? 2 attack buff. Since when does the Blood Fiends have problem clashing? I ask you that question. This is really just to help people clash. But since the Blood Fiends don't have problems clashing, this thing is like whatever. I don't give a shit about this. The Blood Fiends already have so much clashing potential. So this is not a problem. So I don't care about this buff. Which means I really only care about this buff, the Blooming Thorns buff. And ideally, those Blooming Thorns buffs, they also help the Blood Fiends in order to like, I don't know, contribute to the bleed by just letting enemies hit them and then the enemies bleed. The good thing about this ID, right, it's still that the coin power is still very solid on this character. Look at the coins. It's going to be 11, it's going to be 16, it's going to be 16 by defaults. So that's already going to be good. And then with the coin power +1, coin power +1 can potentially be 2, coin power +1 potentially 2. This all will roll very, very well. I believe it was 22, 22, and then this is 15 if I remember correctly. 6, 12, 15, yeah, correct. Okay, so yeah, this ID, great clashing, very supporty for some reason. Very supporty. Like, don't expect her to always get to finale very fast. It's actually going to be quite slow. But yeah, this ID is actually surprisingly supporty, surprisingly healy, surprisingly cleanse ID. Like, there's a lot of stuff I'm very surprised about this ID. Not the bleed count savior I thought about, but a very good support ID that has an ego that enables the whole archetype, and also gives a bunch of healing to all of the characters, and also gives Blooming Thorns, which encourages you to let your allies be hit, so that potentially they get bled, and potentially the enemy gets bled, so that there's more blood to go around. But right now, right, we are all still very hungry Blood Fiends. Not everyone can get their fill. So if Rodion wants to take the back seat, so that all the other Blood Fiends can drink first, I see no problem with that. I'm not going to lie. I actually see no problems with that. Even if I don't get the Festive Fever buff right now, the fact that the others can scale is pretty damn solid, because this Otis, once she scales, right, she becomes quite a beast, and she becomes very good at maintaining her scissors once she's fully scaled. And for Priest of La Mancha Land Gregor, he can go a few turns without actually drinking too much blood because of the ailing heart. And then once he's decided to ail his heart, then he can actually consume the blood. So if you want, you can actually do Poverty Gregor, where Gregor is just the big contributor of bleed and feeds all of the other Blood Fiends first. And then after Otis is stacked, then you try to let Rodion drink, and then after that his ailing heart breaks and he starts drinking the blood. So yeah, I don't know which way you want to go about it right now, but I definitely feel like this is the whole Blood Fiend team coming together. We got the support Blood Fiend, we got a DPS Blood Fiend, we got the supporty, tanky Blood Fiend who can never die. So yeah, right now it feels like we are moving towards a more self-bleed archetype, where we will not get our bleed from all of our enemies, but we will get our bleed from all of us. So maybe when Sancho comes out, she will punish all of us by bleeding all of us, or maybe she will be the actual savior of bleed by making a bunch of blood spread to all enemies or something like that. One thing I will say is that since Rodion requires requires allies to be bled, right? There is one way to do it without having all of your team be a Blood Fiend, which is Yearning Mikalam Assault. With Rose Wedges, every time someone hits a Rose Wedge target, they actually bleed themselves. So once they have bleed on themselves and they bleed a little bit, that will help trigger the passive of Dulcinea Rodion. So having this ego here is quite important, because there is currently no other way to make yourself bleed. Like, you can't make yourself bleed unless the enemy bleeds you. But Rose Wedge is the only way we have right now to make enemies bleed you. By applying this status, and then you hit that enemy, and then congratulations, you will be able to get some blood on yourself, and that will help to support the bleed agenda, as well as help to support Dulcinea Rodion in her passive build-up. So yeah, the team comp is kind of coming together. The dream, I can see a bit of the vision, but I'm just sad that this ID does not have the count, which I was really looking forward to, because the boss fight, she had a lot of count. But it's fine, okay? Sometimes shit falls short. This ID is in no ways bad. It is still a good ID. It is just that there will be some pieces in the future to help to cover up the weaknesses that this ID has shown so far. So currently we are 3-4-4, I think, where the 3 IDs I thought that perhaps they could do some bleeding shenanigans don't really have a lot of bleeding shenanigans, because their count was really bad. But on the other hand, they do have ways of making you hurt yourself so that you can bleed more for the glory of the Blood Fiend family. So yeah, I think I see where this is going, and hopefully with more IDs in the future, I hope to see the whole team really come together, and we'll finally get so much blood on all of our members that we will be able to totally drink a ton of blood, and we'll all be sated and very, very fast scaling with our characters. I think that is something I'm looking forward to. One other thing I'm looking forward to is hopefully a blood bag Massault ID, because you know I talked about yearning Makala Massault. I really hope I get a blood bag Massault. Someone that gets hit but doesn't drink blood, but when she gets hit, he bleeds himself even more, and then Dulcinea gets to cleanse the blood off of them. Because if you read Dulcinea's skill, right, for Rodion, she gets to cleanse 2 other allies with the highest bleed potency X count, and then increase blood feast. So I'm really hoping we get blood bag Massault. Like, I feel like all of this points towards Massault getting beat the shit out of because he's a very tanky boy most of the time, and he will bleed for us. I need another person besides Gregor to bleed for the glory of La Mancha Land Rodion team, right? So yeah, that's one of my hopes. Hopefully it will happen. And yeah, I think that is all for this video. I'm just a little bit disappointed with Rodion, but I'm not that disappointed because artwork amazing, animations very good, and also the potential of this character is here. It's seeping there. And once more children come in who can drink Blood Feast, this character here will become much, much better in my opinion. Okay, so that's it for the Dulcinea Rodion review. Ultimately, if you want to get her now, I would say you will see a lot of holes in her kit. Like, it will be a bit awkward to use her. For Fel Bullet Yisang in a Poise team, totally good. Like, this is a really good eagle for a Poise team. Like, just shoot your ally, don't care, just shoot him, because you will get a bunch of poise, and then from then on you will be a very happy person, because then you just need to maintain it, right? And then you have other people to do it for you. Blind Obsession Ishmael, you have Ahab Ishmael, you have Blade Lineage Massault. All of those are great options for the team. Okay, so that's it for my review of these characters here. I still got her anyway. And then right now, right, I think my favorite ID of all the Blood Fiends actually is just Gregor. Because Gregor is the one who suffers the most and is the one who feeds everyone the most. So I really like him a lot. I think he's one of the main enablers in the future for helping everyone drink blood. Because he's the blood bag. He's one of the blood bags. I need a second blood bag though in order to help everyone drink. So hopefully they do release a Massault blood bag related ID or something like that. I don't know, maybe a Cassidy ID? That could be okay, I guess. As long as Cassidy is like worthless, gets hit and bleeds himself a lot, that'll be like really good also. Okay, so that's it, I think. If you have your own comments and stuff, feel free to drop it down below. But yeah, I think that this banner-wise, La Mancha Land Rodion, still a solid option, but not that amazing, not the savior that I thought of. But Fel Bullet Yisang, surprisingly quite solid, even though you have to shoot your ally with it. Just shoot your ally, take the 10 points, and then be happy. Okay, so that's it. Thanks guys for watching. See you guys next time. Bye-bye.